Today I'm going to talk to you about our Maple Creek project area, which is in the Northern Olympic province of South Australia. It's early stage exploration work. This slide here on the right, you can see some of the JORC information and the various public reports we've made over time. If you want to follow anything up from today's presentation, please go to those references. Now, Petratherm are a South Australian explorer. We're looking for copper gold in the Olympic province. We're also looking for rare earths on the Northern Gawler Craton. We have two copper gold projects, Woomera project area, which is in the in the Central Olympic domain, just here, sort of just west of Oak Dam and Emmy Bluff, Maple Creek, which I'll be talking to you about today. The other focus for the company are rare earths on the Northern Gawler, Comet and Muckaninny project. Just briefly before I get into the Maple Creek project, this is where we're at with Comet. We've been doing a lot of drilling out there for clay-hosted rare earths. We've identified 3 areas which got good grades, good concentrations. We've got rare earths starting at about 5 metres depth. Here's a cross-section from our Meteor prospect area. They're about 10-15 metres thick, grading at about 1,000 ppm total rare earth oxides, are very good concentrations. We can beneficiate that ore too to about a 2,000 ppm con. So the challenge now for us is whether we can extract those clay rare earths cheaply using acid reagents, and that's the work we're working on now. One of the interesting features about our project area up there is that these rare earths are associated with magnetic complexes, and not many people know too much about these complexes, whether Archean or younger, Muckaninny age, say 1870 years age. But here's an example, for instance, from our Comet East project area. We've got a magnetic image here, and you can see a high rare earth associated with that southern margin, that magnetic complex. These are highly differentiated layered intrusions. We know from the petrology work that our rare earths are being sourced from apatites. We think there's potential here too for high-grade rare earths in the fresh rock below. Interestingly, we're finding some PGEs, a bit of gold too, associated with these layered intrusions. So that will also be a focus for the company going forward. Just quickly, Woomera in Central Olympic domain. This year we've been very busy undertaking gravity survey work over our western lease areas, which are here. You can see Oak Dam to the north, Carrapateena out here, Emmy Bluff, and you can see we've generated a number of interesting gravity features on our licence areas. So those areas were basically a big fuzz 12 months ago, but now we've got some fantastic looking targets to follow up. Here's a close-up of our Woomera project area to the north. We have the historical Winjabby prospect, originally drilled by Western Mining back in the day, this gravity ridge here. Between those 3 holes, there's probably 500 million tonnes of copper. But it's low grade, it's about 0.3 and it's about 800 metres. But you can see those gravity systems extend onto our ground. We've got some lovely conjugate type structures. The gravity intensifies. We want to test those targets to see whether we're seeing higher grade concentrations of copper associated with those structures that may be economic. And one of the more striking features is that target in the southeast we call Rocky Well, which models up beautifully as a nice sort of breccia pipe-like body. Here's a comparison of that body on the right there, Rocky Well to Carrapateena. It's deeper, it starts at about 1 kilometre, but when we model this, its density is an IOCG type density, an IOCG type volume. So potentially it's 1,000 million tonnes of copper sitting there at 1 kilometre. Exciting projects. But today's focus is going to be on Maple Creek. This is an old image that I produced back in my Minotaur days, back in the late 90s. State, I guess you can see it's the state of South Australia, it's a gravity image, and I love gravity because it shows the deep crustal architecture. And you can see here, structures going everywhere. And one thing that really struck me when I saw this image are all these east-northeast type trends. And what role do they play in localising IOCG style mineralisation? If you study this mapping closely, you'll see there's actually a lovely structure run through here. Olympic Dam lights up, that's Olympic Dam, lights up right on that structure. And in fact, it's the only gravity anomaly that lights up on one of those east nor'easters. There are lots of other east nor'easters, and you see these IOCGs spatially linked to them. OD is the only one that lines up right on one. It's hosted in the first and second order structures. It's an order of magnitude bigger than everything else. The other IOCGs are in higher order structures, 3rd and 4th order structures. They're an order of magnitude smaller. Prominent hills on 4th and 5th order structures. It's another order of magnitude smaller again, where you've got the interplay of the Mount Woods, southern margin of Mount Woods inlier, the Borgonia Shear here. It's got a little rift environment. it's coasted within a little graben feature on the little splay feature. So structure, I think, is really important in localising these systems. And back in late 2019, when BHP announced Oak Dam, my director rang up and said, look, can you get us some ground next to Oak Dam? You know, that's an easy thing to do, of course, with the whole area being pegged. We went back and looked at the Olympic domain, there. And we could see that the ground way to the north was free, the Mabel Creek Ridge, which we had a little dabble at with Minotaur back in the mid-90s. But we revisited it, and we could see a lot of interesting structures. And nobody really knows when you go north, where does that Olympic domain really go? Does it go over through here? Does it go through the Peking Dennisons? Does it run through the middle? You know, where's the interesting bit? We did look at the, I guess, the gravity and the magnetics in more detail. And we've now built up quite a large project portfolio, over 4,500 square kilometres. We're very much focused on the eastern margin of the Mabel Creek domain. This magnetic complex here, you can see here's the Mabel Creek domain, the Mount Woods inlier here, Pipapiti Ridge in between. And we love these sort of nor'westers running through here and these conjugate east-nor'east type features. When you drill a bit deeper into this project area, you actually see, oh, well, there's a thing called Caddy, which BHP drilled in 1992. And they intercept some really lovely looking sort of copper, 44 metres at 0.1, very high rare earths, 16 metres at 0.57 copper, and hundreds of metres of high rare earths. And light rare earths, that's sort of screaming an IOCG type signature. That's hosted magnetite. There's some interesting intrusions there that have sort of carbonatitic type affinities. And we all know from reading literature that carbonatites and IOCG are also related, so I wouldn't doubt that may be a possibility. More recently, we've acquired this licence here, where Big Northeast prospect occurs. It's another historical prospect, and these licences out to the east. Big Northeast is really interesting. We've had a specialist consultant have a look at that for us. And this is, on the left here, is the gravity and magnetics. The mag-grav target was drilled in the early 2000s through here. You can see it's a big chunk of that gravity that hasn't been tested, gravity-only target, which we think is quite interesting. But one of the big surprises is the sediments hosting mineralisation in this area. Now, a lot of explorers say, oh, don't go too far north, you're looking at mid-crustal levels, it's all amphibolite facies. It's not perspective. You're looking at the root zones of an IOCG system, you want to look in the upper crustal levels. Well, these holes have got Wallery group sediments, low-grade metasediments here, argillites, mudstones, dolomites, sandstones. Nobody realised that those upper crustal level sequences are preserved. And indeed, there's some lovely iron breccias. This is that same hole, Avenue 2. These are hematitic breccias, close up there. So I think it demonstrates this area is really live IOCG style mineralisation. I think it's really, really encouraging to see that sort of work. And I'd argue too that the amphibolite grade rocks you see west of that structure were probably already been exhumed at the time of IOCG style mineralisation, which was quite late. So they too are also prospective, whilst they're also mid-crustal level rocks. Now, we've conducted 2 drill campaigns out there to date. This is a photo of the landscape. You can see there's a lot of vegetation out there. It's a bit of a martian landscape. One of the interesting features is all these lonestones lying about the surface. This is a big lump of Gawler Range volcanic, big lump of granite. They're everywhere. Presumably they've been ice rafted, 300 kilometres from the Gawler Ranges, dumped out into the Bulldog Shale muds, which have since eroded away, leaving these lovely lonestones. An interesting little geological story. We have about between 100 and 300 metres of cover, so relatively speaking, for Olympic Dam style targeting, it's shallow. We've got Bulldog Shale, about 40 metres, and we go into a thick sand, Cadanawi Algebuckner sands, and then into the Mountudna Shale, so shale, sand, shale, and then into relatively fresh basement, which has been etched, there's no regolith preserved. That sand is charged with water, so had Edward John Eyre dug a bit, he would have found the inland sea going north. In fact, I think Peter Malinowskis could probably excavate this and produce a lovely water feature and tourist attraction for most South Australians, because that water's just sitting at 15 metres below the ground. The company has undertaken, I guess, a series of regional gravity surveys to start with and prospect scale surveys. We've undertaken a lot of 3D modelling of the mag and grav, and we've focused on targeting the gravity, and we've drilled in 5 areas to date, which you can see listed. And you can see, though, too, how sparsely drilled this whole area has been drilled. I'm really pleased to see Bronwyn saying this is going to be a focus for the department going forward because it's a really interesting area. These host rocks are a sort of Broken Hill equivalent. We've drilled rocks that look just like Broken Hill, garnet-bearing gneisses, biffs, amphibolites. I found a bit of lead and zinc associated with that mineralisation with those drill holes too. So I think there's potential for BHT-style mineralisation. You'll see here not a lot of gravity out to the east. And this big nor'wester, which Katie sits on down here, we think is fundamentally important, and we know we've got the youngest stratigraphy east of that structure. So this year we've acquired new licence areas out to the east, and a big focus for the company will be to infill those areas, which we think it really is elephant country. And depth of basement out there is probably less than 600 metres, so highly prospective for IOCGs. Now, I'll just focus briefly on one of our project areas. I should say our first drill campaign was during lockdown 1. We took isolation to a new level. This is our Area 5 project area. It's a magnetic image in the middle and residual gravity contours shown. It's about a 5 milligauss gravity anomaly. We've taken that big 5 milligauss bump off and showing you just the residual numbers. We've drilled 4 holes out here into this virgin country. In the central complex here, we have a granitoid that's highly fractionated. That's a lump of it there. It's rare earth enriched. This is what it looks like when it goes through alteration, a lot of red rock alteration. We see other fractionated portions of that same granite. That matrix there, this sort of intermediate type granite here, is running about 0.2% rare earths. So very interesting, and we don't know how old these rocks are. They could be Hildebrand age, they could be a little bit younger. We don't know. And surrounding that intrusive core, we have metasedimentary sequences, which have trace chalcopyrite throughout. These are some of the chalcopyrite layers we see hosted in those sediments. We have other residual gravity features we haven't tested yet, but we think this is really interesting. We're seeing that the IOCG style alteration is occurring. Here's a shot here of typical chlorite, hematite, cerussite alteration we see associated with that area. So we think it's a very prospective area. Moving forward, as sort of earlier mentioned, we're going to focus on our gravity work out to the east of this Wirrakana structure, which we think is really important. You can see some interesting little magnetic dipole features here, sitting on a nice nor'wester. Well, I love these areas, and we know the depth of cover here is probably only 500 or 600 metres, so very amenable to drilling. We'll be undertaking gravity surveying, and we hope to be drilling this area again for our third round of drilling mid next year, and I hope I've got something interesting to say this time next year. Thanks very much for your time.